Hey everyone, it's Michael. Today we're going to be talking about another Goosebumps book from back in the day, the 90s classical series with 62 books. This particular book is a sequel to one I just reviewed yesterday, as a matter of fact, called Deep Trouble 2. Now, I enjoyed the first book a lot. I had my nitpicks in my review if you want to check that out and see what I had to say there about that book. Now, Deep Trouble 2 is actually pretty cool. It's not a direct sequel to the first book. It has the same main characters like Dr. D and Billy and Sheena. It has those folks, but you also have the story referenced from the first book about the creature they tried to hunt for in the first book. That the first book was kind of centered around that as the plot. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who doesn't know about it, so yeah, don't ruin what that surprise and what that creature is that they're looking for in that first book for anybody. It's kind of like the big thing about the first book. But with this second book here, it doesn't pick up where the end of the first book happened, even though it's kind of a direct sequel, but at the same time, not really. Basically, in this book, you start off with essentially a shark attack. You know, Billy and Sheena, it's been a year since they had seen their uncle. They're back now, hanging out with him on the Cassandra, which is actually the little boat lab thing that floats around in the water that the uncle lives on. Yeah, Dr. D is back. He's cool as always. Now, the thing is, with this book, there's basically a shark attack for the story. And it also turns out that the uncle, Dr. D, or Dr. Deep, is what the D stands for, because all of their last names are Deep, if you haven't gotten that yet from the series. Essentially, they go down into his lab, and they happen to see a fish that looks pretty familiar. It's a pretty large fish, too, about 4 feet long. It turns out to be a minnow. And they don't understand how this usually very tiny fish is enormous right now. Now let me tell you something. Me personally, full disclosure, I'm terrified of fish. I'm terrified of the ocean and all kinds of stuff. I'm utterly petrified with stuff like that. I just don't like fish. I don't trust things that don't blink. The thing is, this book is so much more centered around fish and fish attacks and being stranded near fish, and there's one scene with, well, actually two different scenes with some things in the water that utterly horrified me. Now the thing is, it might not work for you if you're not typically afraid of these things as I am. Now myself, like I said, am terrified of things having to do with the water, like fish and whatnot, crabs, all that stuff. Terrified of it. This stuff affected me so much in this story. I think there's a lot of tension here. I think there's a lot of suspense here. And the thing that really surprises me is how many folks I talk to pretty regularly that love the first Deep Trouble book and don't like this one at all. They think this is one of the worst. I'll give you this. It doesn't feel like a Goosebumps book. It kind of has this weird blend of mysterious men, government agent type people being involved with weird mystery about fish being enormously sized compared to what they actually should be sized. It's not the greatest Goosebumps book. It's not even like in my top 30 probably, even though I've only read 30 in the last year. It's not one of my very, very, very favorites, you know what I mean? But it's certainly not bad. I don't know why people don't like Deep Trouble 2. I genuinely enjoyed this a lot. I think in some respects, I enjoyed this a little bit more than the first book, because the first book is kind of like an animal rights type thing, and it gets annoying, but it's kind of fun and adventurous and a big more grand scale type story than you have a typical small closed off Goosebumps tale that we typically get, especially back in the old classical days for the 62 book era, when Goosebumps first became a popular thing. Before Series 2000 came along, before Horrorland and Most Wanted and all those different eras, this was more of a time when you had more small stories. And this kind of feels like a small story. This book flies by. It's like 113 pages, and it zooms by compared to the first Deep Trouble or any of the other books. I don't know what it is about that. It was such a really engaging read. I got into this a lot. I mean, I read it in 2 days, and I know that doesn't sound like something impressive for you guys, but with the small amount of time that I typically have in my life right now, at least with all the planning for my wedding and stuff, it's a lot at one time, and it was a big adventure to be able to read this in a couple of days, because I got sucked into it. It was a really solid read, a really fun read in my opinion, and like I said, it doesn't feel like a rehash of the first book. Very much like you have a problem with that with the Night of the Living Dummies slappy books. That typically is a very common thing with those. The Monster Blood books, I've heard, are just kind of the same rehashing thing over and over again. I don't know how true that is, but I've heard that. This did not happen here. And then, of course, there's a third book. It's the second book in the Horrorland era series, whatever you want to call it, from like 10 years ago. I think the book is called Creep from the Deep, which I did not realize was a Deep Trouble book or sequel or anything until I saw the back of it and saw Billy and Sheena's name written on the back on the synopsis. So I'm hoping that that book will be as adventurous as these first two books were, and I'm hoping that that book will also kind of carry on the tradition of being its own thing, you know, but also kind of referencing the first two books, but at the same time it doesn't really have to. This was really a cool idea, and I had a lot of fun reading Deep Trouble 2. Again, if you have heard nothing but bad things about Deep Trouble 2, don't listen to them. Try reading this for yourself if you get a chance. This was actually a really enjoyable book, especially to be towards the end of the original classical Goosebumps books, where it seems like a lot of people say that those later books aren't as good. That's where a lot of the rumors about Ghost Riders start popping up and all that. I don't care. This was a fun read. I can't believe people don't like this. I never expected I would like it, of all people. But yeah, the fish stuff really got to me. I think there's a lot of suspense here, a lot of terror. The TV episode was supposedly based more on this than the first book. I disagree. I think it has elements of the first two books all together in that episode, but I think the episode itself is so horrid and so awful that it's its own thing, and it's not even a direct adaptation of this book or the first book. So don't even waste your time with the TV episode. Just read the two Deep Trouble books. I haven't read the third one yet, so I can't recommend it to you yet, if I'm going to at all. But Deep Trouble 2, what did you guys think about this awesome little book? Put your thoughts and comments down in the comment section down below. And I hope you enjoyed this book review. I hope you enjoyed this book if you read it. Did you enjoy the first one more? Do you like this one more? Like I said, I kind of lean towards liking Deep Trouble 2 a little bit more than the first book. For just odd reasons. Like I said, I'm terrified of fish, and that's a big prominent piece of this book. And it kind of was with the first book, but not so much. There was a big mystery of hunting for a creature in the first book. A lot of animal rights type stuff. This book is genuinely kind of scary at times for people like myself. So yeah, if you're terrified of fish, this is the book for you. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. If I had to rate Deep Trouble 2 on a 5-star basis, I'd easily give this a 4 out of 5. This is one of the scariest, I'd say. Well, maybe it's a personal scare rather than an actual real type of scary for Goosebumps. It wasn't something like Zombie Halloween, that was some creepy stuff. Wanted the Haunted Mask was also genuinely scary. That scared me more than any Goosebumps book I've ever read in my life. Yeah, but still, what are your thoughts on Deep Trouble 2, guys? Put your thoughts and comments down below. As I said, 4 out of 5 stars for me. I really like this. Thank you for watching. May the Lord Jesus Christ bless you guys today, and goodbye.